which is pretty. Got it.
We've been down in captivity, oh so long. We've been down in humility, much too long. We've been down in a slavery, oh so long. But we are gonna rise and shine and bring all liberation. For now's the time when all nations must be free. So
I was born with 2 tears in my eyes for Africa. Look how they live in luxury while our African people, them suffer us. How you strategize all your lives, saw blood, sweat and tears that built your empire. The system was designed for I and I to never rise, only bleed to fulfill your desires. I was born with both hands on my heart from Mama Africa.
it's time for liberation. Mama Africa awaits a revolution. This is the time for meditation. Free up your mind from the lies and illusions. This is the time for liberation. Come make we stand up and start a revolution. In these are times of elevation. Have you keep your head above all pollution. Revolution in the air. My people prepare. No more African children. Not to shed no tear. Full time be aware. Babylon no sincere after all. Who are send the guns them out here? Spiritual warfare. They may rage on the people like they don't care. The world we live in is unfair. Yet a victim mentality.
Like Haramaunbas.
Rastafari, blessed love, and welcome to the African Liberation Network. I'm your host, Honorable BlaqMarry Menen, also known as Ja Daniel. And today we are here with a very special couple of guests. We have the Honorable Empress BlaqMarry Menen and my comrade, General ThauThau Haramanuba of the Rastafari United Front, of the Bake Hase Order of South Africa, and of the Rastafari Continental Council, and also a member of the African Rastafari New Faculty of Overstanding. So we welcome you both, and we give thanks for your presence in the name of His Imperial Majesty, Garmawi Kadamawi Haile Selassie, and Itige Menen, Asfar, our father and mother of creation. Welcome to the program, General ThauThau and Empress BlaqMarry Menen. Rastafari.
Give thanks, my Lord. Rastafari is the Almighty.
Blessed love.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate the moment. Yes, I.
Truly give thanks. Yes, I.
Love, my Lord. Ras Kwame. Even congratulations on your new name, reclaiming your African identity. We give thanks in the name of His Majesty, Kadamawi Haile Selassie Garmawi Itige Menen. And we also give thanks to the African Liberation Channel and for having us once again at this platform. Give thanks, Rastafari the Almighty.
All right, welcome, welcome. So this is a special edition. It's the first time I've ever had 2 guests, you know, a family, a couple. And the topic today is relevant to family, where we're talking about polygamy. As we know, the general and his queens have been in the spotlight over this subject for some time now, you know, sometimes for good and sometimes for bad, but we welcome it all the same, right? Because anytime you're doing something new, you're gonna have to, go through some fire, So welcome the fire, and hopefully you'll go through the fire and come out unscathed, proving what's right and what's wrong, So today's topic is polygamy and how it relates to African liberation in the Rastafari movement specifically. So, yes, General, you've explained to me that you have, is it 17 children?
Yes.
18, 17? And you have three or four? How many empresses do you have? Three
empresses and 17.
Right. All right. And to some, that's like a shock, But I think I heard you say you have 53 siblings yourself, General. Is that right?
Yeah. My father had 14 wives and 52 of us, 52 children.
Oh.
So, and then my grandfather had 14 wives, 12 wives, and then with a whole lot of descendants. So when I count historically, I have 5 grandfathers and my father who were all polygamous. Back to the founder of our surname or our name. So it is our tradition, it's part of our eponym. Our eponym is a praise poem. Like every clan, they have a praise poem where it's like your family creed, where it explains who you are, where you come from. It's part of your history, but it is in a praise poem where every Bantu people have that in their own family. It's a self-affirmation, but it's also self-explanation. It's part of it, detail your lineage. So it is part of our tradition. About 4 years back, we had this big family meeting, and our great aunt, I don't know what you call it in English really, one of the great aunt, I'll just simplify it like that. Mm-hmm. And then she was addressing the male in the family, and then she was saying that every time we ask you, who is your wife? You must say, here they are, not here she is. Because here we marry more than one wife. It's part of our tradition. So basically, it's part of my family tradition, it's part of my African tradition, much as it's part of my Rastafari tradition. As far as I've studied Rastafari, Levity, I learned that the very first teacher, Leonard Howell, had multiple wives that he was living with at Pinnacle. But I also know through tradition that Bob Marley had several wives, or women had children by several women. I know that the founder of the 12 tribes of Israel, Prophet God, had several empresses. And so basically I find, and I reached Jamaica also, I learned a couple of elders, even within the Nyabingi, that, this elder had 2 wives, and this had this amount of wives. But then when I also come through in South Africa here, my teachers in Rastafari, like Ras Kingston, had 3 wives. When I met him in 1995, he introduced me to his 3 wives, and my elder, Ras January, who was the chairman of the Rastafari National Council established by Bongo Time in 1997, and an elder in the Nyabingi had 3 wives around that time. And one of our famous musicians, Ras Angola Maseko, had his 2 wives, and so forth. So it has always been part of our African and Rastafari tradition. So we can't accurately be true and say it's a new thing that people are responding to. No, it's a practice that has been there, that is currently maybe faced up with dominant idea of monogamy as institutionalized by Nyabingi order, Bobo Shanti, and other orders of Rastafari that will say they are monogamous. Except, of course, the order of BlaqMarry is polygamous. Monogamy and polygamy is integral. It's one of the sacramental practices within the order of BlaqMarry.
All right.
So it is part of Rastafari. It's an order within Rastafari that has institutionalized polygamy.
Nice. Good. I mean, so, I think really when people are afraid of things like, say, polygamy, because I mean, really, I think the reason why some of I not really, I wouldn't include myself, but some of our brothers and sisters kind of burn it out is because they're afraid, really, because they don't fully understand how it works. You know, I think more times ones will feel like, say, some type of sympathy for the women involved, and feel like they are like settling for less, and that the man gets all of this freedom and he can have however many wives, and the woman can only be with one man. And so it's just like people don't really understand really how it works, and the benefits of it, and the ins and outs of the everyday, you know, life. And so that's what we're kind of here to unpack, you know, to kind of give people more insight into how polygamy works, and also to give some insight into how it can be helpful, how it can be of strength to African families. So I would like to, this question would be for Empress BlaqMarry Menen. So Empress, as a woman who is a part of a family, which is, you know, you and a king man and 2 other women, and you have children and all of this, how, first of all, how is a next wife introduced to the family? Like, how does that work? And also, once the new wife is introduced, is there a marriage ceremony? And when you have children, how does the whole inner workings of the family work out? Like, you know, are you communicating with the other women and stuff like that? Just give us some insight into your everyday experience as a Rastafari woman who's married to a king man who also has other wives.
Give thanks, my Lord, for the question. I believe that it depends in families how they are dealing with it, because it's not the same in every household, in every family. It's an order, you know, and it's different from each family. So in my family specifically, when there is a new empress, obviously it's the king's duty to let his existing empresses to know about the next empress or the coming empress. So it's sort of like a meeting where she is introduced to the family. Like, for instance, myself, I grew up in Cape Town, which is another province within South Africa. And the king is in the north, which is here in Limpopo. So when I came in, I was introduced to the whole family, as well as the wife, the first lady, who is living here with the rest of the family. So I was actually introduced like that. We called a meeting, and then everybody knows about me, you know. When it comes to marriage ceremonies, like I said, it differs from each family, you know. So we are not all of us yet married, because some of the relationships, like for instance, my relationship is still new with him. Unlike the first lady who is married to him, they are about more than a decade now. So yeah, it's still gonna happen. But the most important thing is that now I was introduced into the family, and every member of the family knows about me as the second queen of the honorable. And I feel like it is important for the empresses to get along and to communicate, which is the life that we are living. For instance, it's the 2 of us who are living with him now. Like he explained earlier that the other Empress So, is living in the Eastern Cape. The aim and the purpose was for all the empresses to be here so that we can all build here, you know, sort of build like our kingdom here, so that every empress have their house and have their company or whatever that she would like to do, you know, to help the sustainability of the family. So it is only now the 2 of us who are here, me and the first lady. The relationship is Irie, I would say. Like, we do communicate, we do spend time together, you know, getting to know each other better, because like I said, I'm still new in the picture, I'm still new in the family. So I'm learning a lot from her, you know, and also we are teaching one another, you know, we are strengthening one another. We are trying to make this work, you know, to be harmonious, because the aim of polygamy is for the wives, or should I say the beauty of it lies in the unity of the women. You know, it is very important that the women in polygamy get along. That way it becomes easier, and it becomes less stressful, it becomes harmonious, it becomes peaceful, it becomes an ideal polygamy, which, and you know, everybody else would maybe have an interest to be part of it, because it's beautiful, you know, to see two empresses who are in love with the same man, or more than two empresses who are in love with the same man, but are in understanding and are living harmoniously, you know. Yes, trials and tribulations will always be there, like in any other normal relationship, but we are family, we are a team, so we come up with resolutions to make things airy, you know, and just live together with love and respect and in harmony.
Good. Give thanks. Yes, I. So thanks for that, you know, your perspective. And so, you know, questions come into my head as I'm listening, because, all right, in the West, you know, here in America, obviously polygamy isn't, I mean, it happens, you know, more times it's more so like say you referred to Bob Marley and probably even some of the elders and things like that. Bob Marley's, his children's mothers were not all on the same page, and it wasn't like they agreed to a family situation where there was going to be other empresses. I kind of get the vibe that Rita Marley was just kind of like, you know, cheated on, you know. I don't think she liked it. I don't think she was, you know, welcoming to that kind of vibe. So what you have going on is a bit different. It seems like everybody is on the same page and want it to work out and, you know, love you and understand that you also would love another woman or another two women. And so does jealousy become a thing ever in these situations? I mean, not just in your particular relationship, but just in general, like in your culture, do you see situations where a man might have more than one woman and they're like bickering with each other, or they're jealous over who spends more time or whose children get more attention, or anything like that? Like what are the common like problems, and how do they arise, and how are they dealt with? That's for either one of you to answer, or both of you. You know, I'm sure you have both something to add to it, so free up.
Yeah, in my experience, not in my personal experience, but since I've been the loudest empress about polygamy on social media, so a lot of empresses would come to me like for advices, because they are also facing the same thing or same poly situation in their relationship. So they don't know how to deal with it, especially the insecurities and the jealousy. It's there. It's a lot. They are struggling. Some of them, they feel like, we love polygamy, we would love to make it work, like to be part of it, to practice it. But then now the jealousy, how do you deal with that? You know, how do you live knowing that your king love other women? Like, they sort of feel like they are inadequate, you know, they are not enough for their kings, you know, there's something that they are not doing right, you know. So yeah, they are still into jealousy a lot, and which is, it's a deal breaker, you know. Women in polygamy shouldn't be jealous, especially women who came into polygamy knowing that the man is a polygamist, you know. Those who came knowing that they are coming into a polygamous setup, they shouldn't be jealous. You know, there are also other empresses that would say, I love polygamy, I'm not against it, but it's not for me, because me, I'm too jealous, I wouldn't share my king. It's better for those, you know, because now they know themselves, they know how they are, they know that they are too jealous to share a king man. So they don't even want to be part of it, because now they are going to make things hard or difficult for everybody else, because polygamy shouldn't be about that. It shouldn't be about jealousy and competition and comparison. No, those things, they just breed toxicity, you know. They breed bitterness. There won't be anything good come out of such a setup. So it's something that they are dealing with it a lot, you know. It's something that is there. But for me, I came here knowing exactly what I'm putting myself into. So, and being the person that I am, I'm not a jealous person. And yeah, I loved polygamy since I was just a little girl, you know, seeing it from TV, vendor people, they are so big in it. So I used to watch it and feel like this is something that I would do. This is something that I would love to be part of, you know, especially with the same minded people, you know, like-minded people. So yeah, it's ideal to find empresses that are also, you know, looking at it the positive way or the same way, because you can't be having people who are pulling on different directions, you know. It should be oneness. It should be a one team thing, you know. We should all be playing for the same team. So yeah, they are struggling a lot. My sisters, they are struggling a lot with jealousy. Some, they are considering it, but now the stumbling block is the jealousy, the insecurities. They don't know how to deal with all of that, you know. I don't know, maybe, I guess it's who they are, or they are holding on so much into jealousy that they don't want to let go, and, you know, they don't want to share.
Just to add on what the Empress is saying, but also responding to the question you leveled. When I mentioned Bob Marley and others, I was actually talking to the nature of man, Rasta man. That Rasta man has always been into multiple partners, more than one woman. And that is in the nature of man, not only a Rasta man, not only a black man, but I'll speak now from a black man, a Rasta man, and African in Africa point of view. That the nature of man, they've always found themselves having multiple partners, and then chronicled through Rastafari, different leaders, different personalities, including Bob Marley and so forth. Even with Bob Marley, those children, there's a story that every time you bring back those children from different women and bring them to Rita and introduce them to Rita, that is why today they are beneficiaries of his millions that he left behind. The Damian Marleys and the others, you know, they are not all from Rita, but they are beneficiaries and they are known children to Rita. So there was a way. But also looking at Jamaica baby mama culture, you know, we're so big with the baby mama culture, which also multiple partner culture, which is part of our African culture. But if not managed properly, then it will produce these ideas of you are being cheated on. You are some sisters, we hear them talking, like those who come for advices. We hear them talking about it's better he has that other woman there, as long as I don't know. So some, they consider knowing about the next woman as a disrespect, that he's disrespecting me. How come he's telling me about the other woman? He's supposed to be loving me alone. But this speaks to conceptual error in the idea of a relationship. There is a conceptual error, whether coming from Western monogamy or Christian monogamy, or this thing of saying, I'm jealous, I can't share. I've had different episodes of polygamous relationship affected by different conditions. At one time, I left the country and come back. I found my family just gone astray. But in all my experiences, there is no a woman who is a type to polygamy. Like you said, this is for this type of women and it's not for this type of women. There is no class. There is no type. There is only a love enough. When a woman loves a man enough to share or to cohabit with him, they will do that. But also there is a great understanding that we belong together. Nobody belongs to nobody. Common thing they love to say, they call us Jah man. They call a Rastaman Jah man. And I will say, what does it mean? It means a man of Jah, not your man. I'm not your man. I'm not like in your Western concept of feminism and ownership of he's my man. No. A man belongs to Jah. A man belongs to society. A man belongs to family, a man belongs to community, a man is a community. In African, in our traditions, even when we greet in plural because of the understanding that in the person of the person, there are many persons. So we're greeting them in you. We see you as a community, as them, not as you. I mean, you are 33% your mother, 33% your father, and 33% yourself. The greater part of you is not even you. The greater part of you is your mother and father, and in them is their mother and father, and so forth, going back in time. That is basically what you talk about when you say ancestors. You're talking about your very building block of existence is that you are a community. So there is no individual ownership. Now, from we deal with that personal and interpersonal relationship between man and woman, that the Western society, Babylon, define it in these ideas of jealousy. But the second challenge of this jealousy, you find it mainly from the first wives, who over the years maybe thought, I have some ownership of this man. Now, knowing about the second wife, like experiences that we have experienced here with the people who are inboxing my Empresses and by inboxing me for advices and what majority are the second wives. And we have no problem with polygamy because they come knowing. The first wife either is like, you never told me before that you will venture into polygamous way. So it is circumstantial. There is no manual to this. There is no particular approach. It's so circumstantial. Some men are found cheating and then turn polygamous. Some men, they've always been polygamous, but found themselves coming through different strict structures like Naya being is a one man, one woman. But until you transcend that, you study, you observe that, but Abraham was polygamous. Jacob was polygamous, like biblically speaking. His Majesty sitting on the throne of David, he's saying, I thank God sitting upon the throne of David to exercise God's charity over you. Now all of these things are speaking to different traditions that has always been aspect of polygamy, whether biblical or African. So now it is in the understanding that the people during biblical time, what was their understanding? Israel is formed out of 4 women. Jacob had to form the 12th tribe of Israel out of 4 women. The covenant of David, had David not looked upon the other woman who happened to be Uriah's wife, Bathsheba, who was not David's first wife, and bear Solomon. And Solomon, the queen of Sheba, was not Solomon's first wife, was just one of many women that's 1,000 women Solomon had. And then therefore, through that line, we have the Solomonic dynasty, 225th is His Majesty. We have the Davidic covenant, out of which David, the Most High, said, on the seat of David and the throne of David, He shall raise up God to sit on that throne. Why choose the polygamous line? These are contradictions that we need to solve them. The primary and secondary contradictions that we need to solve them within Rastafari and within our own levity. And that is why we are preaching the thing. We say we need to normalize polygamy in Rastafari because the foundation of Rastafari is polygamous. You can't talk of Rastafari, even on a general note. At one time in South Africa, we were all members of the 12th tribe of Israel. We have our own indigenous 12th tribe of Israel, not founded by Prophet God, our own, that is biblical, that is still observing the new moon, the biblical festival, Sabbath. They close the gate on Friday evening. Most of our elders are the 12 tribes in the north here in Limpopo and so forth. They are observing Old Testament traditions. And if you go there where they live, most of them are also polygamous because it is a biblical Old Testament thing. Elkanah, everybody in the Old Testament, every great person in the Old Testament, Gideon, the Bible tells you that Gideon had 70 children, 4 he had many wives. So, and so forth and so forth. So it's basically, it has always been part of the biblical tradition, the African tradition, and I maintain that it has been part of the Rastafari tradition. So what is being, it is a strange thing here. It is the idea of trying to institutionalize jealousy and make it and normalize jealousy in the name of, me, it is not for me, it's for who? You know, there are more women in the world more than men. Men have so much suicidal tendencies. There are most men in jail in some. So basically, polygamy is not even about men's pleasure. Polygamy is about every woman having a man. It's not about a man having many women. It's about every woman being able to say, he's my man, to even if he's a man to that sister of mine.
And every child to have a father.
And every child to have a father. So now it is being looked at through Western spectacles of individualism, crass materialism. Some people will tell you that he must be very rich to have more than one wife. But again, Isaiah 4 verse 1 in the Bible says, in the last days, 7 women shall take hold of one man, and they shall come up with their food and clothes. They only need to be called by his name. Now, it is not a socio-economic business. It's not a socio-economic something. It's not a charity something. It's not a get-rich scheme that a man must be rich to be polygamous. You go to Swaziland, where you get indigenous African practitioners of polygamy. I mean, the king is the most polygamous king. He's got his 36 wives and so forth. 18 wives and 36 concubines and whatever, the king Moswati in Swaziland. But you get even ordinary poor polygamy. It's not even a class thing. You don't have to be rich to have more than one woman. You just have to have a heart, a big heart, and honesty enough to say, I love this woman and I love this woman. I love them both. And they are my empresses. And there is nothing wrong with loving more than one woman. It is in the nature of man. Man is created that way. So if we follow natural law, if we follow natural philosophy, we'll understand this. But now, if we go venturing out and we're dealing with some of the other things, because it is in the nature of man. Man is the only creature that God created to have sex every day. And woman can't. You know, there are a lot of things that women go through, you know, mood swings, period phases, breastfeeding, pregnancy. Some when they are pregnant, they don't want anything to do with anything, and so forth. But man is designed differently. Every morning you wake up, he rise up. You know, that's it. You know, yeah, rise up. You know, so we're speaking to natural law. We're speaking to the nature of the man, but we must also speak to the nature of women. Most women are monogamous by nature. So it doesn't say because of we talk of polygamy, people should come up and say, and then polyandry. What about women with 2 husbands? Most women can't handle just one man. You know, even the idea of, oh, this man, he wants sex every day and so forth and so forth. Although it is not all about sex too, because sex is part of procreation. We're looking at it in terms of important aspects of the building blocks of the family itself. I mean, human beings are created sexually eventually, so we need to understand that part. Nobody's just vomited out of the mouth. You know, people are created sexually. So, and that is the natural. His Majesty said the natural origin of man is man. Now, biblical origin of man is God. Mythological origin of man is a whole lot of things, you know, but the natural origin of man is man. So Rastafari, we deal with nature, naturality, the natural philosophy, natural way of life. So I'm saying, and I'm contending within the nature of man, and like I've stated that I know about 20 Rasta men in South Africa who are in this situation, and their second and third wives are contacting us and trying to find solution, how to go about this, and that is where we deduct that, okay, problem number 1 is the first wives and their supporters and their whoever advises them and say, no, you know what, this person belongs to you alone, you can't share it. And then from there, we find that majority of the women who are in the second wife and third wife position are willing participants, and with greater understanding and need for the first wife to accept them and to see them as an integral part of the family. But the first wife also, they are coming from this jealous that, am I no more attractive? Am I no more useful? Oh, there is the new one now. So all of these things, they breed a lot of false alarms, false expectations and so forth. So, but yeah, so we need to look at the conceptual understanding of relationship. You know, who own who? You know, is anybody who own another here, or do we belong together? You know, like are the babies coming from the mothers or they come through the mothers? So these are the things that we really need to look at them on a broader scale. And when we say this thing is new in Rastafari, what do we mean? Because in Rastafari, we love to say there's nothing new under the sun. And I point to you that from as early as 1933, 34 coming through, up until to where we are, maybe from the movement point of view, we can point, instances of multiple women cohabiting with one leader, and so forth. So, and it's part of our African tradition. It's ageless. It's as old as ourselves.
Rastafari. Well, give thanks. Yes, mean, what all I get from what you just said is that our mentality, our brain, our mind is just is geared in a wrong way from our tradition, our original traditions, to where we get to be possessive and attached and all of these things to people and things too, and that creates a lot of the problems that we have in general amongst ourselves. I mean, not just with marriage and polygamy, but a lot of things, us not trusting each other and, all of these different things. So give thanks. I mean, like when you say that the man belongs to the community and the man belongs to God, like that's a whole conversation in itself, because I mean, if a man isn't free to do what he needs for his community, and he's really only serving, like, say, one household, is kind of like a limit, you know what I mean? Because the same man could be doing a lot more to help a lot more people, but he may be with someone who's very possessive, which would cause him to limit himself, So yes, I give thanks. And so, all right, now we're coming along. We understand how polygamy works and how the family is built. Like, how the introduction of the new Empress and all of this stuff, and we understand the mentalities that create problems. But now I want to go into, and you kind of touched on some of the aspects of it, but I want to go into how polygamous families can improve African liberation, right? Because you spoke of the thought, the mentality or the concept that people think that because you are polygamous and you have more than one wife, and say if all of your wives have children, then automatically ones begin to think, all right, well, you must have a lot of money. Either you have a lot of money and you're able to provide for all of them equally, or some of them are being neglected financially, which is creating, say, like poverty or situations where, like, say, children are not being raised properly. So I want you to tell us what type of family structure, what type of community or village structure it takes for a polygamous family, where, say, a father like yourself, or even your father, I would like to use that as an example, because he had a bigger family, 14 wives and 52 children. That's a whole lot, a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of shelter, a lot of clothes to provide. You know what I mean? I have 4 children, and I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm struggling to take care of them, but I mean, sometimes it's hard for sure, financially to provide everything that they need. But so, like, what does it take? Is it just the man and his wives that support these families, or is it the bigger village and community? Is it grandma and auntie and uncle and everybody else helping to raise the children? And also with all of that, I know this is kind of a lot, but it's all relevant. Like, when it comes to us freeing ourselves from, say, neo-colonialism and these things, how does this polygamy situation benefit that? You know what I mean? Is it helping, or is it making things harder or worse on us as the ones in society, as African people? We're on the bottom of the food chain, so to speak. You know what I mean? So is the polygamy making it better or worse, and how? So, if I need to break that down into parts, I know it's a lot, but if you could just start with the village or the family structure that supports it and how much money you need, and then come down into how this impacts African liberation. Is it better or worse for us in our struggle for freedom?
One of the most revolutionary thing for the African to do is to be African. Like, being an African is the most revolutionary thing for an African. Before we can talk about ideologies and so forth. Mm-hmm. But now we need to understand that polygamy is framed from a particular setup. When Africa, when they say it takes a village to grow a child, they meant the village. When Black people had their cattle, they had their own farms, they were providing their own food. Poverty was purely when you are lazy to work. If you don't work your own farm, if you don't take care of your cattle and your livestock, then you will suffer. So, and then polygamy has formed part of us even when we get displaced from our rural settings to the modern settings. My grandfathers are of the rural setting. Their farms, their cattle, their own big pieces of land to build homestead. They were living in homestead. And then my father is a transition from rural families to the cities. Now, the men who are now dispossessed land, they are forced to pay taxes. Now, for them to pay taxes, they must go and work in the white man's industry in the urban area, the movement from rural areas to the urban area. Now, I was born at the time when they had their homestead in Mpumalanga, in Bushbuckridge, in Mapulani. So in 1980, we moved. We came to, that is when I'm beginning school. We came to the urban area in Polokwane. They first stayed in a place called Distening, but then they moved into Sishiro, and then they stayed in one big homestead where all these children were staying there and the wives were staying there, and he was working, formally employed, and his wives are selling fruits, vegetables. The other ones are like selling fat cakes and fish and chips. The other ones were selling clothes, like there was everything called mashela, where they go to the factories down the road by where my family house is. If you go down the road, there are factories down there. So they used to sell these cloths that they go and buy them and go and sell them. So my mother and others, they spend a lot of time traveling around, going to sell, arrested by the apartheid police for selling at places that they were not supposed to be selling at, like in the train and so forth. Now, in my case, I'm a Rasta man. I'm an unemployed and unemployable. So I hustle. And some of my kids are staying with their mother's families. I think prepare to. Okay. Sorry. My data was playing things. So some are staying with the family and so forth. Like my kids with the first wife are staying with the first wife and the family. So now they're staying with different family members. We have big families or extended families, and some are staying with their mothers. So, the support, the support must be managed based on your income level. If you decide that, okay, you're going to take one of the kids to one of the most expensive schools or one of the most expensive crèche, so it becomes a challenge that you create as a family, and therefore you have to come up with a solution to deal with it. So I can't say, yeah, I'm able to take care of everything. I do struggle. I do struggle like any other Black person. But again, this is not a problem that is uniquely polygamous problem. You find it in monogamous relationship. This is not only to say the greatest and the best of us are produced by well taken care of families, when majority of Black people are impoverished, are in poverty. But also the best members of our community are not necessarily product of the best well taken care of families. We have presidents who come from one of the most poorest background at their time, like Jacob Zuma. He didn't even afford to go to school. So to say now kids born into poverty, it is itself counter-revolutionary or not contributing to African development. I will not fully agree with that, because we don't know. We always say children are blessings from the Most High. That is why in our traditional African society, there are no illegitimate children. There are no unwanted pregnancies, because we always understand that the children are the gifts of the gods, or they're the gifts of the ancestors. So one is born for a purpose. You don't know this child, what is going to turn out to be in life. It's going to be the president, it's going to be the king, it's going to be something big in society. So you can't predetermine that. Therefore, you can't predetermine that by trying to predetermine the condition where a child should be born when you don't know that the child is born into what, or is born to become what. So we're just having children like any other normal people. The only difference is we're in a polygamous setup. So children will be born because love is being made. So that is a natural process. And therefore, we're in a permanent revolution. Every aspect of what we do contributes to African liberation. And everything that we do should contribute to African liberation. The establishment of Black families, our contribution to African family. The establishment of polygamy in Rastafari is both revolutionary and liberatory, because the idea is that these women are free. They know that they don't have doubts that there is any other person. They know who is involved. But these people are conscious because we are Rastafari. We are set in a particular way. With Rastafari itself is a liberation ideology or a liberation philosophy. So as long as we continue in the path of Rastafari, we continue in the path of liberation. So families developed within the liberation path are contributory to liberation. Polygamous families developed within Rastafari are ultimately contributing to the liberation philosophy or theology of Rastafari.
Give thanks. Yes, that clears it up. Because like I said, more times when we think of polygamy, like I can speak for myself, and I've had ones ask me, or not even necessarily ask, but speak this concern just about finances. They seem like if you have a lot of children, then that means it's going to be really hard for you to take care of them, and it's going to be detrimental to society as opposed to helpful. So thank you for clearing that up. That question, a lot of the questions I ask is not really coming from my mind, but more so what I know people don't understand, because I see these reasonings a lot and I understand what people think. So, don't feel no way that I'm asking, some of the questions that I'm asking.
I know that as you are representing a whole lot of ideas who are not necessarily your personal ideas. As a person doing something for the media, or being a medium of communication and transmission of information from one point to another, it's not necessarily the ideas, but it's basically we're dealing with misconceptions of the society. We're dealing with myth. We're dealing with some of the things that are built around this as scare tactics, because we all know that big families are a threat to what we call Babylon. We all know that big African families, where Africans are endangered species, and by any statistics, Africans are the most, when you talk about murder, it's gone high. You talk about murder of Black people in anywhere where Black people are in the majority. When you talk of poverty, it's gone high. You talk about poverty of the Black people. When you talk about AIDS, they talk about Black people. Even here, when they talk about the coronavirus statistics, you know that they're talking about Black people. So bigger families are important, whether we are poor or not. And we've always had bigger families, even in slavery, even throughout apartheid, even throughout colonialism, throughout all stages. Bigger families are not of a particular period. There's no such thing of, now it's difficult economic situation, you need to have small families. This is just scare tactics. We have always had bigger families throughout all epochs of our existence.
I think that's a European way of thinking of approaching and assessing things, is to think that we have to be in a perfect scenario before we create children. I see a lot of, families here where European people, they wait until they're 40 years old and they've traveled the world and they've done all of the work that they want to do. And then when they're too old really to be having little babies, that's when they start to create a family. And to me, that doesn't make sense. I think it's better to have children when you're young, if possible, because you don't want to be 80 years old and your children still be in high school, because you're going to miss out on a lot and you're too old to really interact with them and stuff like that, So I love it. I understand it. And you explaining it makes it even clearer. So thank you very much for being here and taking the time to answer these questions and shine some light on the situation, because I know a lot of our brothers and sisters are torn over this. I mean, people get really upset. I see, you know, conversations, I see people attacking people and all. It's like out of control. I mean, and all right, so for the Empress now, Empress BlaqMarry. So a lot of what I hear from Rastafari people is His Majesty and Empress Menen were, you know, a couple with no polygamy. They didn't have any outside affairs. They didn't have any extramarital affairs or anything like that. They didn't need counseling. It was just them two, you know? And, you know, while to me, that's not enough, because there's a lot of things that His Majesty and Empress did that we don't do, like probably eating raw meat, you know? Most Rastafari don't eat camel meat. You know, but I'm sure His Majesty ate camel meat, because that's like the culture there. They put the berbere and they mince it up real fine. So I want to ask you, when you're compared to, say, Empress Menen, and you even have her name in your name, BlaqMarry Menen, you know, how do people see you, and how does it make you feel when if you're looked at as like contrary to our mother, you know? Does it make you feel a way? Do you feel like you are exuding the virtues of a virtuous woman and being in a polygamous situation? And how so?
Yeah, I give thanks, my Lord. I got that a lot, you know. Pardon a little bit.
Yes, I take your time.
Okay, we're trying to connect to the next gadget.
Okay.
Because we're depleted here. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, if it cuts off, then we'll continue at a better time.
So yes, as I was saying, I did get that a lot, and it never got to me, because people would come to me and, like you said, that it is in my name, and I'm supposed to let go of that name. Like, they actually come like that you should let go of that name, because you are definitely.
Take a moment. Turn off the one phone. Go and then turn the video on the other. Yes, you're still there. I can hear you. I can't see you. Just initiate your video if you can.
Yeah. Do you see
No,
us?
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
But we can see you. Where is the... Okay.
There you are. All right, we got you. Give thanks.
All right.
Yes, Empress.
Yeah, people will be coming to my space and tell me that I should let go of this name, because it doesn't represent it well, you know, because Empress Menen was not in a polygamous marriage. You know, he actually portrayed a perfect example of balance, which is she was the only empress, you know, the only rightful empress of His Majesty. Like I said, it never really got to me, even from the beginning, because I knew what I was standing for, you know, and even the name that I'm using, which is the name of our worthy mother, you know, Empress Waizero Menen. It was within my right to actually call myself as Empress BlaqMarry Menen, because I am her daughter, and the fact that I'm in a polygamous relationship, it doesn't change anything, because His Majesty and Her Majesty never said that. I don't know where, you can call it for me if you know it, Majesty, but I've never seen or heard them saying that in order for you to be an full Rastafari, you must be in a monogamous relationship, or a king is actually supposed to have one queen. They never said that, you know. It's just the perception of I, you know. It's how they look at it in the end. It's sort of the weapon that they are using against us, that this thing that we are doing, it's wrong, and it's something that only came with us, you know, in the community of Rastafari, which is not true, because like the Honorable explained earlier, that it has been always part of Rastafari, like the founders of Rastafari were polygamists, you know, and also the throne that His Majesty is sitting upon, it comes from a lineage of polygamy, So they are just using these things to fight what they don't like and what they don't understand. Because like you said, Majesty, there are a lot of things that His Majesty did and that we don't do as Rastafari people, as Rastafari, like they were going to church on Sundays, and most of us, if not all of us, like all of us actually are going to church on a Sabbath. We are Sabbath keepers. We don't go, we consider the Sunday a first day of labor, all of us, So I don't know, they sometimes when they are against something, they use it as a weapon to fight against what they don't like and don't understand.
Right. Yeah, fire burn, picking and choosing, His Majesty and Empress Menen. The most important things that they did, really was for African liberation, and the cultural stuff is really, not even relevant, in some regard, because for Rastafari, many of us don't agitate for rights. We don't hold any principle in our life. We don't do the important things that come from His Majesty and Empress Menen, but we hone in on the menial kind of little petty stuff just so we can pick on our brother and sister. And it's just, slave mentality stuff. And we have to forgive our brothers and sisters because they don't know what they're doing and what they're saying, so we have patience and understanding. And that's why we're here today, to give clarity, shine light, so ones can have more information so they can make a better assessment, analysis of polygamy and African traditional family life, because we've come so far away from everything African, even on the continent, many of us have lost, what is rightfully ours. So again, I'd like to thank you all, you two, for being here. If there's anything that you would like to say that, if you feel like there was something important that you would love for the people to understand that you think they don't understand based on your interactions with them, then I would leave the floor open, and you can just share whatever's on your heart. The time is free, so just, say whatever you feel you need to say, and after that we'll seal up and we'll end the episode.
Well, I would just like to say polygamy is not a taboo. It's not something that is a sin within Rastafari. In my opinion, it should be actually something that is a way of life in Rastafari. Rastafari should be about polygamy, because we cannot really run away from the nature of man, that he needs more than one woman. Whether we like it or not, it is happening, whether we accept it or we don't accept it. So in order for us to eliminate cheating, because a lot of sisters, they are dealing with cheating men, and they don't want to come up, they don't want to come out with that reality. They are hiding it and portraying their men or their families as perfect, as if they are not cheated on. But we know a lot of them, like honestly speaking, like men with 2 families, but he's hiding because now the first queen won't accept it, So I feel like they should just, accept it and make it normal in Rastafari, because it has been always here, and it's high time they really accept it, and stop the standards, the unrealistic standards that they are about, is like they are taking it as if, those that are not in polygamy, they are in a higher standard, and those that are in polygamy, they deserve less, or they are less confident, or they have less self-esteem, because why would they get involved with a man that is already have women? And I feel like our sisters need to really just let go of jealousy, because it's not something you can even try to hold on to it as if it's it's an achievement or it's something good. You know what they say, that jealousy makes you nasty. So we don't have to be jealous. We should just, you know, have love in abundance. You see, my Lord, be able to love another queen because he is loved by the same man, that loves you. You know, we don't have to hate on another woman. We don't have to hate on our sisters just because we are loved by the same man. You know, what happened to one love? You know, one love should apply in every aspect. You know, love the sister because your king loves her. You know, it will make Nyani, our livity, a better life. You know, yeah, just for us to be in unity and live largely in love and respect. Yes, that's what I can say.
Yeah, and even to add on that, fundamentally, even here in South Africa, what we find as a Rastafari community, we find that we have more men than women, which is very abnormal, because in normal society, there are more women than men. That society cutting across, whether animal kingdom, fish kingdom, bird kingdom, human kingdom, normal human society, there are more women than men. And that is one of the fundamental reasons why the African society evolved polygamy. When Africa was ruled by the women, polygamy was evolved from a matriarchal Africa. It's not even a patriarchal thing that people are trying to turn it to be, that is patriarchy's oppression of women. No, even our idioms, even our proverbs, even our wise sayings that justify polygamy, they will tell that the man is an ex, we borrow each other. So the people who utter that statement, they say we borrow each other. Men can't say that unless men are batman to be sharing another man. But here we're talking about women who are saying a man is an ex that we borrow among ourselves. But we come from a society where women used to rule us, when we used to worship women as gods, when we used to worship our wives, when we used to worship our mothers as God. When the ancient Egyptians say heaven is the womb, heaven is between the legs of the black woman, heaven is between the thighs of the black woman. The society that decreed that there are more women, because the midwives are the women who are doing social statistics. They know how many kids they deliver into this world, and they find that the majority of them are girl child. So they evolved also the issue of polygamy in order to balance society. Now here in Rastafari, you hear people when they see a couple, a man and woman, they say perfect balance. His Majesty and Empress Menen, a perfect balance. How do you talk about a perfect balance in a society that is imbalanced, where there are more women than men? And in the case of Rastafari, yeah, there are more men than women. So the Rasta men should be deliberately, consciously going out there to get more empresses to come and balance this levity, and have more empresses and have more children, and therefore have a larger community. We are endangered species. We are a community that is going through extinction. The Rasta man is still haunted down, is filled up. We have more than 230 prisons in this country, and in all of these prisons, there are Rasta locked up in those prisons. The Rasta man is still a statistic, under the pretext of war against drugs, ganja, and so forth. But the Rasta man is also a social statistic that is socially marginalized and criminally profiled by the society he's existing in. He's cast as a criminal entity. Now, polygamy, like we say, we have to normalize it in Rastafari. It is beyond sections and sensual pleasures. It is about the core of our African liberation. You need numbers to fight any war. If we are fighting a war of liberation here, we need numbers, and we don't have such a numbers. We're having a large amount of individuals who are all pretending or contesting for priesthood, which is multiplication of doctrine and dogma. That is why people are going out of their way to do comparison of bananas and apples. They keep on trying to compare Haile Selassie with our Rastafari levity. Rastafari is Haile Selassie, but Haile Selassie is not a Rastafarian, or it's not a Rasta man. He doesn't live Rastafari levity. He doesn't dance to reggae music. He doesn't need to eat cabbage and spinach and carrots to feel like he's divine. He doesn't does not have dreadlocks, does not smoke ganja. There's a whole lot of things that His Majesty doesn't do. His Majesty, we keep Sabbath, we worship on Saturday whenever we do our churchical things. His Majesty worship on Sunday. We don't have images of Jesus in our temples, whereas Bobo Shanti 12 tribe, Nyabingi, Melchizedek order, Bake Hase, Mau Mau, Akalipi, we don't have images of Jesus, white or black, we don't have that. We only have images of Haile Selassie. And Haile Selassie went to a church that have images of Jesus, black and white. So it is two different things to keep on comparing His Majesty with our levity. I always said, if my God is live the way I live, then he's not worthy of being my God. Haile Selassie should be different from me. If I have to be monogamous like Haile Selassie, then what is the point of him being a God to me? If monogamy is the highest standard or highest discipline that they want to project in the person of His Majesty, that he was monogamous, after Empress Menen passed away, he remained without an empress, that is a strict discipline. That is what I would look up to a man as a God. But I don't have to be like that, because I have to respond to my nature. And I've told you, I am born of a polygamous family. My mother was in the first wife. That is why I'll never join a choir of condemning polygamy. Had my mother not agreed to be my father's third wife, I wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be talking about that, because it took my mother and my father to create me, and my father was polygamous and my mother was his third wife. So I'm not even a product of a monogamy or a product of a first wife thing. Now, the next thing, again, there is an unwritten first wife club in Rastafari. It is always articulated in a form of, this is not for me. You know, they'll post it there, the women start to talk about a polygamous man. And then you start to hear comments, those who say it is for them, those who think it is not their type. And these are the first wife club, who have a false notion of ownership and of owning the Rasta man. And they are expressing those things. Me, my man, I'll tell him to do this. And now, this is where things have gone completely wrong, not only with polygamy, but with the conception of the man in the life. That is why most of the sisters, and this brings us to the point of a Rasta woman and a Rasta man's woman. Now, and we have a difference between a Rasta woman and a Rasta man's woman. A Rasta man's woman follow Rastafari as long as she's involved with the Rasta man, and she's separated with the Rasta man, she's no more involved in Rastafari. But also a Rasta man's woman have tendencies of the women of the world, like my man, me, I'll tell him to do this, me, I'll do this, me. So they're talking about a whole lot of things that are fundamentally against the very idea of why do we say a Rasta man is a king and a Rasta woman is a queen? Why do we live a liberty that defines itself in terms of divinity and royalty? Not in terms of Western society of Mr. and Mrs., husband and wife. Here we talk about the king and the queen. She's my empress. She's not necessarily my wife. Because if I'm going to say wife, she has explained to you that we haven't gone through all the traditional rituals of lobola, of marriages, you know, a ceremony and all of that. But we have a system in Rastafari that defines a union of a Rasta man and a Rasta woman, and that make a Rasta man to look upon his Rasta woman and say, she's my empress, she's my divine goddess. And the woman look at her man as my king, not necessarily my boyfriend, or whether married or not necessarily my husband, but my king. Now, we need to understand that concept too, that why the Rasta man and the Rasta woman define their union in terms of royalty and call one another my king and my queen. One of the things Empress Mama Marina used to tell me as a woman who grew up in the Bobo camp and in front of the Honorable King Emmanuel. And then she said that the King Emmanuel, one of the things that he taught them was that even when you differ, you must still differ in dignity. You'll find a king and a queen arguing and keep on referring to one another as my lord and my empress and my lord and my empress. In the middle of argument, that we must disagree, but without being disagreeable. We must differ, but in dignity, and still respect one another and still see one another as my king and my queen. Not reach a point and say, this dog, this animal, now you start to talk about some other thing. So fundamentally, if we stick to the structure of Rastafari family as Rastafari define it, as a king and a queen, man and woman, whether you have paid 1,000 cows for her or not, but you are in your divine union, sanctified by this idea that we both share a God. My God is your God, her God is my God. There's no doubt about that. You know, she hail Haile Selassie, I hail Haile Selassie. She hail Empress Menen, I hail Empress Menen. You know, we glorify Rastafari. Rastafari is our liberty of choice. Nobody's forced has forced us here. It's our liberty of choice, both of us. I meet her as a Rasta woman. I did not make her a Rasta woman, and I don't even believe that there's any man who can make another woman a Rasta woman. It's a liberty of choice. It's a voluntary association. Everybody volunteered to associate with this particular liberty and manifest it with their own strength. Because being a Rasta is not an easy thing, particularly by other Rastas. Rastas don't make it easy for you, they make it hard for you. We are not a relationship that is gone through smooth sailing. Practically every month we get one type of attack or another. And then we'll spend a week or two on social media dealing with those type of attacks. You know, sometimes somebody take our pictures and tag their friends and they start a conference in our name, and either we choose to respond, and we already learned a lot from that. And some of the things you respond in your own peril. You know, sometimes they are referring to us. We know that we're the most Rastafari polygamous couple, but there are a lot of Rasta polygamy. I think we're the loudest, you know, because we are on a mission to normalize it within Rastafari, because we're dealing with its reality. Like we're saying, we're having a non-stop inbox conversation. And it makes us to reach the conclusion of these statistics that we have about 20 or so families that are actively involved in this and are actively having problems that need intervention, like the first wife problem, the second wife needs. So sorry about that.
Okay, good thanks.
When I talk for a long time, my tonsils, they dry up. I have a problem with tonsils, and the doctor, they say they can't operate them. I'm too old for that. So they dry up and then they make me cough. So I was saying my Empress should take on where I left off, but she's so much in love with my voice, so she just want to listen to me. So basically, it's a living reality that we are dealing with, but it's a living reality that is based on conceptual understanding. That our conceptual understanding of family is very non-Rasta, even though we are Rasta by most. You know, like the whole idea of monogamy, it is bringing so much of Western individualism and clothed up in Ethiopian Christianity and making Haile Selassie and Empress Menen as a point of reference for that. Some people, they go all out and say His Majesty was against polygamy. I have said that I have searched His Majesty from both when I used to believe that His Majesty is the first and the second coming of Christ, to the point where I hold on to the idea that His Majesty is God Almighty. I search Him in His words, in His teaching, His autobiography from 1918 to 1972, all the written words of Him that I have. I search Him in His autobiography, My Life in Ethiopia's Progress, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I have never came across where Haile Selassie said polygamy is wrong. I've came across where they say Haile Selassie ordained order of fidelity.
Yes, I.
I've came across where Haile Selassie gave people medal of being faithful to each other for 25 years. And I'm saying, had I been around at that time and had my two wives and I've been faithful to them for 25 years, both of them, wasn't I gonna get that order of merit too? Because it's about the fidelity for both of them. This is my view. But also taking it expanding beyond Judeo-Christianity, because His Majesty was also guided by his immediate religion, which was Christianity, which he took an oath in 1932 November. Among one of the three oaths that he took was to uphold the faith of the Orthodox Church. But His Majesty say, yes, I am a Christian, but as a king, I am equally a Christian, a Muslim, and a pagan. Now, the Muslim part of him should admit that Muslims marry 4 wives. It's part of their culture. And the pagan part of him, which in this case is talking about African tribes of Ethiopia, both Ethiopia outside of Ethiopia, we've always been referred to as pagan in that context.
Yeah.
It will speak to indigenous tribes that are polygamous at most and at large. Now, the two part of Haile Selassie, the Muslim part of Haile Selassie and the pagan part of Haile Selassie, do admit polygamy as part of their culture. You can't say, I'm a Christian and I'm also a Muslim. If I'm also a Muslim, I acknowledge that I accept Islamic practices. But also His Majesty say, we do not consider our religion as the only valid religion. Now, these people are trying to push Ethiopian orthodoxy in the name of Haile Selassie, as if Haile Selassie was a fundamentalist who was only seeing validity in his own Ethiopian orthodoxy. It's a misrepresentation. And we found that most Christian fundamentalists or Christians in Rastafari, or what we usually call them Christafari, because once you use Christ to rationalize Tafari, then you come out with Christafari. Once you use Christ to rationalize what you are as a Rastafari and keep on using Christianity as your point of reference, it means Christianity is greater than you. That which you use to refer or to reference yourself is greater than you. I use Haile Selassie to reference me because I've placed Haile Selassie above myself. But I'm saying that the Haile Selassie I'm using, I look at his Christian religion within context. He was a Christian, I'm not a Christian. And I look at this Pan-African side within context. He's a Pan-Africanist, I'm a Pan-Africanist. So we share a lot of Pan-African sentimentalism. We don't share Christian sentimentalism because he's a Christian, I'm not. And he's my father. Just like my father was a bishop and I'm not. My father was a Christian and I'm a Rasta. But he's still my father. So I don't have to relate with him based on his religion or his belief. I relate with him by virtue of him being my father, who happen to hold a different view, and I hold a different view. So I say to people, I worship Haile Selassie, and if Haile Selassie take my prayers and give them to Jesus, that is his business. I gave it to him as a gift. He decided what he do with the gift I gave to him. If he take my prayers and give them to Jesus, that's his business. I don't go beyond him. So what he do with beyond himself, that is his business. For me, there is no beyond Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie is my measure. It ends there. Give thanks.
Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Well, yeah, plenty of things, and the viewers, you might have to watch this one a few times to get everything, but there's so much, and hopefully this is the third time General ThauThau has been on the African Liberation Network, and I'm sure we'll have him again. Thank you, Empress BlaqMarry Menen, for being with us. Thank you for giving clarity on the feminine perspective of the polygamous African family as it relates to the Rastafari movement and African liberation. We greatly appreciate your explanation and your presence and all, So thank you both again for being with us. Thank you for sharing. Empress BlaqMarry Menen is a designer, a fashionista. So, ones and ones who are viewing this, reach out to the sister and, see if you can support her business endeavors, strengthen the Black woman, empower her family, And General ThauThau is all over the place. He's, doing interviews all the time. He has so much information, Grand Master of the Bakehase Order. Reach out to him if you need to know more about polygamy, if you need to know more about African spirituality, if you need to know more about the continent. He speaks several languages, he's just a resource, and we give thanks for the eye, and we give thanks that you're not quiet with what you know. We give thanks that you're vocal and, not afraid to share even what may seem to be taboo, yeah? So again, give thanks, Rastafari, live and reign, More strength to the Black family, Rastafari. Blessed my Lord and Empress.
Give thanks, Kings. I will also love to apologize on behalf of my Empress, Zolega Nolali, who was supposed to be part of us. I think she's struggling with the network, and we will love to raise the next interview with the rest of the Empresses, all the Empresses present. and just give the people the fullness of the picture, because we also understand that the people will love to see all the empresses together. And it is like a miracle when something so natural has become so rare, and people have to be so amazed to see women loving the same man, speaking. I mean, women in church, they love the same man called Jesus Christ every Sunday. I mean, I don't know what is wrong with this, with this whole thing, but yeah, we need to normalize it because it's a normality. So
yeah, and you see, in general, women, the way they relate to one another is really like bitter. Like that, more times when a woman sees another woman, she thinks what's wrong with what she has on, or what's wrong with her, instead of thinking that's my sister, I love her. And so even the polygamous family is just, it seems, if done right, that it could break down a lot of the problems that we have. I mean, Black people getting together to do anything positive is a good thing, because more times we can't get together to do anything. So if you can have, several women that are working together and they're not hating each other, and they, are on the same page, that's an accomplishment. I mean, and not even just women, because I don't want to make it seem like the woman is worse than the man, because we have a hard time as brothers working together too. But I'm just saying, in the polygamy situation, it's one man and a few women. So it helps to bridge that gap. So give thanks. Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, that is our ultimate goal. And we know also the pressure that is laid on our shoulders, that we being in the leadership and being the public figures, we have the honors of presenting a very perfect polygamous family that our people can look at and believe in and find inspiration, because we know that it is inspirational. We do check other polygamous couples, like there's a famous one from America, Kevin, and his women, Kevin and Lacey and Jamie. And we find it's very beautiful if we have such kind of expose of our polygamous families. So on the 23rd of July, we will be having a SADC, Southern African Development countries like Lesotho, Botswana, Zimbabwe, BlaqMarry gathering. Members of BlaqMarry and Lesotho, we have members of BlaqMarry all the way to Kenya, Tanzania. But we're going to have a SADC gathering. And one of the things that will be a topic on the agenda is the issue of polygamy, to properly structure it. It has always been two accepted practices in the order, which is monogamy and polygamy. So, but now we need to crystallize it, institutionalize it, create guidelines for it, as we have realized that majority of members who are involved also in polygamous relationship are also members of our order, although we have other races from Naya, Bingi, Bobo Chanti, and 12 tribes who are also involved in polygamous practices and would love to, but need guidance, need some guidelines of some sort. So we will be sitting on a 3 days gathering at Botshabelo in the Free State, where we will be looking at codifying and institutionalizing polygamy in a way that is clearer for everybody through the order. As we said, that the order of BlaqMarry for the past 13 years, 14 years of its existence as being one order that has institutionalized polygamy. But we just want to crystallize it and make it very clear and make it accessible for anybody who wants to understand, because this is an order within Rastafari. But also we need to clear up these conceptual differences in terms of how we look at the family, how we look at one another, and what ultimately breeds this envy, this jealousy that we are grappling with, because it is also conceptual. Once you're dealing with that, you clarify it, you address the misconception around it, stereotypes around it, myth around it, and then we are good to go. And then we will have a very wonderful movement. So right now it has been made a virtue, it's like it's a virtual thing. A Rasta woman said, me, I can't share my man. It's like they're saying something of the highest honor. And for people who are engaged in a movement that is professing love, jealousy and love are two different business. You know, we can't talk about love and jealousy in the same sentence. We need to find a way to separate them and know that God is love, jealousy is Satan. So, and these
But
two,
they say these two, they go together, because when you love someone, you must have jealousy over them. It means love.
but that's possessiveness.
Yes.
That's when people, that's when people justify their possessiveness, and then they say, I love you and I'm so jealous. So it's expression of possessive. I mean, there are so many things we call them with the names that are not it. I mean, even the name of God is not God. You know, even God is not the name of God. Like, it's just a name, a noun we have given to this divine mystery. We don't have a full understanding of it. Even love, what we call love and what people are explaining to be love is not love. You know, it's possessiveness, jealousy, is ownership, is my person.
Yeah, exactly. That's why people are killing each other in the name of love. You know.
Yeah. How do you gonna kill a people that you love them? You say, I love her, and then from there, you know, we have stories. Somebody was telling us about 39 policemen last year alone who killed their wives and their children and killed themselves, committed suicide. And when you ask the underlying factor, love. How is that so? You know, so these things, as Rastafari, we really need to use Rastafari knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to go deeper and separate sense from nonsense and put it there for us to really know that, listen, here we're not dealing with love, here we're dealing with sense of belonging or sense of ownership. But what do we need to do to deal with it? What is love? What is divine love? What is it? You know, I mean, we hear the Rasta woman, they sometimes when they are happy, they'll be posting and telling that the queen fix one another's crown. You know, but now when it comes up to the issue of polygamy, they will even refer to another woman not as a queen. You know, that that one I must get her close away from her, my man. You know, like so we need to address these things, because some of them are said in passing as euphemism, metaphorically, but they're not really said factually, to say the queen fixed another queen's crown. What do we mean? How do we practicalize that even in a situation and a setup of polygamy?
Well, yes, so I mean, on the next episode with the ThauThau family, the Haramaunbas, we'll be talking about Black love and what it really is. We just set the stage for it, even though we didn't know we were doing it. So give thanks to the Lord and Empress. We're going to close there. You know, we would like to end by saying, our leader, King Emmanuel Charles Edwards, said, understand and praise God. And he also said, out of everything, get understanding. So that's why we're here today, to get more understanding so that we can praise God as Black people in our African way. So with that closing words, I will give thanks to you two and bless you on your way, all blessings and prosperity in everything that you do. More love, more life, and more Black family. Rastafari.
Rastafari, give thanks for life. Haile Selassie the First.
Rastafari, give thanks for having us, my Lord. Give thanks for life, for everything that is said and done. Rastafari is the Almighty. Blessed love.
Blessed love, Lord. Honor, Rastafari.
Give thanks to everyone for tuning in. Blessed love.